the vibes are so off with the Cowboys right now. When you think about the fact that Dak is out for the season, they can't run the football. They're bickering amongst themselves. CeeDee Lamb wants curtains in AT&T Stadium. He was like 1,000%. They're not going to put curtains. Jerry Jones is complaining. We know where the sun is. We know where the sun is. I mean, Michael Parsons is essentially throwing Mike McCarthy under the bus. It's just one bad look after the other. It's one really negative notch to the Cowboys season. They just keep coming in like another hit, another hit, another hit. They just cannot get on the same page. And they were already struggling before Dak's injury. There's just nothing coming out of Dallas that makes me think they have a chance to do anything this season. I think we can all agree their season is over. Can they keep it within 7? I would never say a professional team. I mean, maybe every now and then. But I don't think the Cowboys have quit. But they just don't have it. They don't have any juice left. And they don't. What are they playing for right now? Especially relative to expectations. It's not like this was supposed to be a rebuild year for the Cowboys. No. Their expectation was to take the next step, to go to a Super Bowl. And here they are, have won a damn game at home all season. There's just nothing I can look at that makes me think that Dallas will put together anything this year. And not tonight.
Well, especially with Dak Prescott out of the lineup, because this was not a deep and good team top to bottom, even when they were fully healthy. They were so reliant on Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb to do all of the work for the offense that now that Dak Prescott's out of the game, it feels like this team doesn't have a chance. So if Dak Prescott was still playing, I would say, okay, you got a shot here. It's kind of like the Rams, when they have Matt Stafford and Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp, I'm going to give them a chance, no matter how bad the defense is, no matter how many holes they have on other parts of the game. Mm-hmm. Same goes for the Cowboys, but now that Dak Prescott isn't playing, I don't give them that chance here. So I feel like I'm officially out on the Cowboys, which it's very easy to say. I think in the betting space, you have to be careful about subscribing to the very easy mindsets. But again, I cannot make a case for the Cowboys. If you can look yourself in the mirror and say, okay, I have a good reason to take the Cowboys. What happens if they get blown out? Won't you go back to that same mirror and say, you bet on this. You did this. You deserve this. I feel like that's what it is. At the end of the game, do you want to feel good about your bet no matter which way it goes? And I feel like if you bet on the Cowboys and they get blown out, you'll only have yourself to blame.
That's right. If you bet on the Cowboys or you fly Spirit Airlines,
right,
it's probably your own fault, and God forbid, don't jump on Spirit and go to the game tonight with a bet on the Cowboys. I mean, you're just asking for it. You know what I mean? What are you doing here? So, yes, if you want to make a case I would love to hear the case for Dallas in tonight's game. Maybe Sammy P and Joe O will make one. I don't know. But I'm sure there is a case to be made. I just can't find it, or I just need to be open to it. Now,
Jenks,
when we look at
there's your headline before we move on.
Yeah, go
Betting
ahead.
on the Cowboys is like flying Spirit Airlines.
Yeah.
Yes, it's cheap, and you're getting the Cowboys at +7, but do you really want that experience? I think the answer for all of us is hell no.
Yeah. Guys, you can bet on the Cowboys, sure. You might save some money, but this is almost like self-harm. You're doing yourself some serious damage in the process. Don't force yourself to do something that you don't have to do. There are better decisions to be made than betting on the Dallas Cowboys. Now, what about a total, Chelsa? I feel much better about a total. I know you like player props as well. I will say this. I really like the under in this game. I think I'm going to play it because, look, you can't base your bet on a one-game sample size, but with Cooper Rush at quarterback last week against the Eagles, my God, the Cowboys offense, holy Lord. He had 45 yards passing. 45 yards passing. That is ridiculous. The Cowboys averaged 2.6 yards per play last week against the Eagles. And I know it's the Eagles defense, okay? That Eagles defense is rock solid. That is a top 3 defense in the National Football League. So the Texans probably won't have that level of success. But we've already talked about how the Cowboys can't run the football, at all. So they're going to be one-dimensional. And do you want to be a one-dimensional team with Cooper Rush at quarterback? No, you don't want to. And then conversely, the Texans, they're a different team this year than they have been in the past because they like to hand the football off to Joe Mixon. He is their bell cow, and it will help to have Nico Collins back tonight. That will certainly inject some life into that offense. But for a Texans team that would rather run the ball, and they should be able to have plenty of success against the interior of that Dallas defense, that's been another weakness for Dallas this season, then I think we can see a lower scoring game where the Texans run the football. Micah Parsons keeps a lid on things defensively to keep it from getting out of hand. But the Cowboys don't get into the end zone. The Texans will put some points up, but they keep it on the ground. They run some clock, and we get an under. That's the way I'm looking at it.
Yeah, it feels like that's kind of been the recipe for the Texans all season long is, number one, they kind of play down to the level of their competition. And number two, they've been scorching hot to the under. In fact, they've only hit the over once in their last 9 games. So for a team that everybody talked about, their young quarterback coming into his sophomore season and the high-end potential, we haven't seen a ton of high-scoring games for the Texans, at least relative to expectations. So I feel like the under is probably a good call, especially, in prime time. I feel like the Texans are not one of those teams that are going to beat the brakes off of somebody. They're not the Lions, it feels like. And I'm not expecting much from the Cowboys. Normally I'd say, okay, CeeDee Lamb's going to take over, but Cooper Rush is the quarterback. So I don't know how much faith I have in this offense. So I just feel like points are going to be hard to come by for Dallas. And I feel like that equates to 0 player props that I like for Dallas. On the side of the Texans, though, Jenks, talk me off of Joe Mixon tonight. The number is really high, but it feels like if you like the game script, if you think the Texans are winning this game, and we know that the Cowboys have been especially susceptible against the run over the last few games. And plus, when your offense is this bad and you can't string together long drives, it just makes it really hard on your defense. So looking at Joe Mixon tonight, his prop is really high, set in the 80s for his rushing prop. And you mentioned this earlier. You could take a look at his rushing attempts, which I feel like is a really good look as well. Rushing yards, 84.5 for Joe Mixon, or you could go rushing attempts at 21.5. So pick your poison there, Jenks. Are you playing either of these?
I'm coming up with a parlay, including Joe Mixon.
Oh.
I think that's what I'm going to do. But I like both of these plays. I really do. And it's not hard to make a case. I also like that if you look at his carries, you can get over 21.5 carries. I think that's minus 110 both ways, maybe minus 115, so you're not laying much juice at all. Pretty much your typical juice there. But Joe Mixon, I talked about him being a bell cow earlier. He has had 4 straight games of at least 24 carries. Now, maybe that's mitigated a little bit tonight because Nico Collins is back and C.J. Stroud will have another weapon. But even with those weapons, even when Stephon Diggs was in the lineup, they definitely have been leaning on Joe Mixon for most of the season. And when you look at the Cowboys defense, bottom 10 of the NFL in rushing yards per attempt allowed, bottom 6 in rushing yards allowed overall this season. So with a Texans team that wants to feed Joe Mixon, with a Cowboys team that struggles in this area, they're so vulnerable in the interior of that defense. Dallas just has a hard time stopping the run. So if you're the Texans and you're having success running the ball, and I think they will, why wouldn't you feed Joe Mixon? I like both of those bets.